So question 7, which is very simple. What is an American?
Okay, I've read most of Martin's answers before we started this. I haven't read this, but this is going to be juicy.
I just wrote my own response to it.
Okay.
Well, Martin wants to go first.
Americans themselves will have to decide that. I will only offer my views on ethnos in general. Most obvious answer is to treat it as synonymous with ethnicity, but this has its limits, which America in particular demonstrates very well. Even if we declare that only Anglo-Saxons are Americans and everyone else is just visiting, are those who stayed in England or those in Canada and Australia Americans? Clearly, there has to be some point of ethnogenesis where the population becomes distinct, probably correlating with state formation. This is still not an argument for civic nationalism. After the nation is formed, it is what it is, and you're either part of it or you're not. There's no joining a nation you were not born into. It can be that one of your ancestors was a foreigner who married into American ethnos, and you're now mixed enough that you're marginally indifferent from a full American, of course.
Okay, so I'm going to give an answer that will probably show my bias. So I define an American as a person who has decided for his or her family and descendants to reside in the continent of the U.S., who is willing and able to defend and contribute to the politics collective capital in all forms, for instance, physical, normative, genetic, etc., and renounce loyalty to all other peoples, polities, and religions.
Yep. That would be correct. I would say that's correct. I would say Martin's also correct. I would say that the country is designed for Francis's answer, and I would say humanity is designed for Martin's answer, or evolved for Martin's answer.
Well, the American founders designed it for my answer.
Yeah, I suspect so.
Yes, that's probably true, isn't it? Is that true?
Yes, it's in the Constitution. For ourselves and our posterity.
I'm thinking about the early debates about Jews. And they were very welcoming.
Well, they made an error.
Well, but then where would you place the Irish Scottish by that definition?
Well, like I said, there's some point of ethnogenesis, and you can include them, but at that point they have to cease to be Irish.
So my view is that Europe is quite a diverse place, and that we are unified by common history, common religion, relatively common culture. Culture is probably too far to take it. And common interest. And that the difference is at present that people tend, not exclusively, but tend to be different within their territories, which is an ancestral evolution. I would say that given what I see as the great migration in the US, the same thing is going to happen here. I would say that is going to happen, less so than Europe. But Europe is failing to centralize, and America is beginning to decentralize to match Europe. And you have to do that. It's just, you can't have differences and not decentralize. Now, in volume 1, I talk about this at length, which is the tendency of all civilizations to gradually centralize, or all states, to gradually centralize to produce cooperative capacity and then to decentralize for regional advantage while preserving the utility of the centralization. So this sinusoidal process has gone out through history, and I don't see it changing. I see that Europe is proving that you can't, you can only federate, and I think America is proving that you can only federate, and we're doing it from two different directions. America from creating the American Empire between 1890 and 1910 or 14, and it's reaching its limits. And that's because, I mean, we only settled parts of this country in the early part of the 20th century, you know. And so that is that regionalism is certainly taking profoundly deep roots, and that's because we've solved the cooperation at scale problem through our institutions. But that the choice to make an imperial America, largely to get Europe out of the hemisphere, was successful at the time, but that at present we're seeing the refragmentation of the country back into what would be a demand for regions and states, just like Europe. And so just as I see Europe going through a refederalization and decentralization in their attempt, which is happening, I see America going through the same process. And one of the reasons Martin and I worked on the law, and my concern was that it was a set of menu choices, because I expected this to happen. And I don't want to say, yes, you're going to build a fucking up, because it's not going to work. Federations in Europe are great. I would love it if the Anglosphere formally federated. I would love it if the Intermarium in Europe would formally federate. I can't see France and Germany ever formally federating. I think it's got to be one or the other. It's the central power. But I would expect it's going to be Germany that wins that battle. So these federations are very valuable. I would see that the rest of the world heading toward federations, because you get the best of both worlds. You get scale in military, geopolitics, military, and trade dealings, while you get small scale advantage of polities that suit local and regional interests. So I see that as the natural continuation of the direction, unless there is some fucking catastrophe. I didn't finish with our nuclear. I'm just going to close with our nuclear argument. Is, in general, it would take 100 to 300 years to recover from a substantial nuclear war. It would take a long fucking time. It would suck. Anyway, so that's what does it mean to be an American? In practice, I think it's Francis's argument is how we are currently organized, and it is not. And the left had made a third level to this. So I say Martin is the low level, correct. Francis is the current civic nationalist position, and I think that the left was trying to make a globalist position by not requiring people to integrate, so that they could produce an authoritarian central government by generating the conflict necessary to resolve differences. Which would again disempower the West.
Integration has always been largely a myth.
I agree. But Europe did an interesting thing. Of course, Europe spread micro groups all over the place, and then once Napoleon came about, the nationalist thing came into place, and most people moved back to their countries of origin. I don't see why that, I don't see why that was a surprise to us, because it created a form of duress. Napoleon reinvented the total war state. Hadn't existed since since the Romans, and he had the requisite result. So I don't know. In the end, under duress, we generally favor our kin, and under prosperity, we are forgiving. And so it depends on what the future holds. I'm with Francis but I don't really give a shit as long as you come here and join in. The problem is you have to be able to, and so far, we have the model minority that seems to be able to. Now we have the not model minorities that don't seem to be able to, and I think that's just going to play out deterministically, as Martin has suggested.
Well, I'm not an American, so it's not up to me. I would call Francis a welcome guest who's welcome to stay as long as he wants.